it's important to realize that we are supposed to meet people where they're at. And in fact, we need to meet people where they're at if we hope to ever see any progress in this in this venture for a safer way. But we shouldn't leave them there, in my opinion.
Don't Hide the Scars, a weekly podcast focused on addiction and recovery. Created by the nonprofit PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, and founded by Flindt Andersen.
Daniel Hearn of Hard Knox Talks. Thank you for joining founder of Parents and Addicts in Need, Flindt Andersen, and myself, Jason LaChance, on Don't Hide the Scars.
What's up, Danny? Hello, thank you for having me. Not much. I'm happy to be here today. All of the technical things worked out, and we're here doing the thing. So it's a good day, man.
Yeah. For those that don't know, have not viewed Hard Knox Talks, I know you've shared some of the memes and stuff that Daniel's posted, but Daniel has the holy shit studio of studios for podcasters. It's phenomenal, and you do amazing work. And we'll definitely get into the starting of Hard Knox Talks a little bit later. But
would you like a virtual tour?
Sure.
Here. So that's my studio.
Nice.
I know it sort of looks like a mad scientist's lair right now, but that's where we're at.
That's fabulous.
And we'll get into the story of how it came to be, I'm sure, as we move along.
Perfect. Absolutely. We were talking though when I did Hard Knox Talks a few weeks back about harm reduction. You're like, I've got a strong stance on this based upon facts and experience. I mean, gosh, we talked to such a variety of people of different stuff, and Flindt and I, prior to jumping onto this, we're just like, there's so many people that are harm reduction. They don't even know what the hell they're talking about. They don't even have the facts to, as we've adopted here, tell the fucking truth about it.
Right. So, Danny, what's your take on it, man?
My take on harm reduction? My take on harm reduction has changed since I've started doing Hard Knox Talks. I used to be of the variety that would just believe the loudest voice. They must be true because they're all over the TV and they're all over the news. But as I started interviewing more and more advocates on different sides of the fence, so to speak, I noticed that over the past couple of years, the pendulum isn't swinging as far as it used to, because it used to be sort of like, abstinence is the only way or you're going to die. And then it would swing all the way to the other way, which would be like, all the drugs are the only way. And if you don't do that, we're all going to die, So it's important to realize that we are supposed to meet people where they're at. And in fact, we need to meet people where they're at if we hope to ever see any progress in this, in this venture for a safer way. But we shouldn't leave them there, in my opinion.
Right.
I am not against a safe supply. I'm not against that. I believe that it definitely has a spot on the spectrum of care. I'm not against safe consumption sites. I also believe that there is a space for that on the spectrum of care. But the idea of being able to buy a gram of fentanyl alongside my bottle of whiskey, that just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, you guys.
I've actually changed a little bit in my direction as well. I'm the old man, the hard line, abstinence is everything. I do believe in that, where we have to meet people where they are. Love that line that we don't have to leave them there. I think that is extremely well said. Now, I do believe in short-term harm reduction, and what that short-term is, I'm not quite sure. But we all know that and again, we were talking about this before we came on, harm reduction, it's like a huge umbrella to me. And there's all kinds of different categories that fall underneath that umbrella as it relates to harm reduction. Harm reduction is wearing your seatbelt. Harm reduction is having a Narcan in your car, in your office, in your house. But harm reduction falls under different categories, such as so it prevents sexual disease. But now you have, harm reduction is related to drugs and what that looks like. So there are these different categories, but it seems to be me that everybody's putting this under this one umbrella. And I hope that makes some sort of sense. But what nobody is talking about, at least where I've heard, they're not talking about the effects of harm, of long-term harm reduction, the medical effects, the potential fractures, the potential sleep disorders, the potential bowel infections, and to where you can't crap. Constipation is so bad with that. Nobody's giving that person the other side of the real story here. And I think that's what really, really gets to me the most. Everybody's jumping on this bandwagon, Danny, and you see it. And they're not even in the fight on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that bothers me as well.
Well, and I think that the fight towards an effective harm reduction strategy has become glamorous.
Yes.
In our fields. It came on so hard and so fast and so loud that everybody is like, oh, I want to be big and shiny too. Yeah, harm reduction. Yeah, safe supply. Yeah, decrim. All of these things, safe and regulated. But nobody really knew what that looked like.
Right.
Like you sort of alluded to there already. What should a safer supply look like? And how do we manage the perception of harm? When we talk about the harms that have come to our society through alcohol, they're saying, oh, so many people were dying because of prohibition, and people were making gin in bathtubs, and people were going blind, and there was a lot of harm. So they regulated and legalized it. But now nobody's talking about how alcohol kills more than every other illicit substance put together. Why aren't we talking about that? And is that the standard? Is that the benchmark that we want to achieve with all illicit substances? Like, really? Yeah. I'm not so sure, man, and like I said, it's important to meet people where they're at. And that doesn't, and throwing up barriers saying like, you're not clean if this, or you're not clean if that, is not productive. It is not productive. In many cases, there are some people out there, not unlike myself, if we're being completely honest, that needed a good ass kicking. And I still do lots of times. Like, ask my mom. She kicks my ass around all the time. I don't think that's ever going to go away. But that's the thing, though. That is that is why we need to broaden and bridge the gaps in our spectrum of care. Some people need that old school hard ass AA mentality. You sit down, you shut up, you work the steps, and abstinence is the only way.
Right.
I'm abstinent. That's personally what works for me. But I've been around long enough to know that rock bottom is a luxury that so many of us are being depraved of. We're leaving this earth before we have an opportunity to find our bottom.
And one of the other things that bothers me, especially if you want to get into quote the political side of this, especially here in California, when we have politicians that are literally telling people, maybe you ought to try snorting fentanyl instead of injecting it. And they're as God as my witness, as God as my witness, and calling that harm reduction. That to me is criminal in itself. I mean, Governor Newsom back in 2020 made a statement at a press conference that America completely screwed up by trying to get people clean and sober. He said that was the biggest mistake the United States has ever made. I mean,
he referenced to every night the nightly news having to self-medicate with some wine before watching the news.
Right. And he said everybody needs to self-medicate from time to time. I mean, the message that these politicians here in California are sending, something needs to be done, about that. And then they wonder why we have a problem.
Well, and that goes back to something that I didn't really unpack, is the perception of harm,
right.
And I brought that forward with in context of how alcohol is wreaking havoc on our society today. That it's okay to have a couple of drinks to self-medicate sometime. It's okay to, and if we regulate and release these illicit substances in an unfettered way, that is going to send a message that these substances are somehow not as dangerous as they once were, and it will reduce the barriers in that it will reduce the perception of harm, and will open the door to a whole new level of people experimenting with these very dangerous substances.
Yes. Right. Well, and you bring a good point. Me as an alcoholic, I've joked about this. What would have been my pathway of harm reduction? Okay, we're going to give you 2 shots of vodka tonight. That's it. But also with the decrim, people decrim. Great. So what you're telling me is when we do that, then we're going to immediately take this as a mental health issue, which it is a health issue. And we're going to effectively do something about this health issue. They're just wanting to go, no, decrim. So it's going to be fine. Like what you're saying is, okay, we'll continue to do what's done in San Francisco, where people and LA, where they're allowed to just go ahead and shoot up, snort, whatever on the streets. And as long as, they're no longer in jail anymore, but it's fine to leave them on the fucking streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's that middle of the road? Where's where we actually start to address this as a mental health issue and focus on it in that way? Okay, I'm with you. That if you are not the dealer per se that's responsible for killing so many people, but the user itself, where's the point then when we treat it as a mental health issue and actually do something about it? Because for now, it's just people going decrim. Great. To do what?
Yeah, and then like where and I don't mean to laugh because this is really a tragic situation that our nations are in. But I was having a conversation last night with he's an ex-drug cop here in Saskatoon, in my hometown. He's now a sergeant. He's a detective, and his career he's been in close contact with the drug economy and the drug trade and gang culture in Saskatoon here for nearly 17 years. And he was saying, in our neck of the woods, we've already decriminalized small amounts of substances. Like it's a de facto law is what they called it, is that we just won't arrest them. If somebody, I'm almost quoting him, but like if somebody goes and is scrounging for cans and doing everything they can all day long just to get that little tiny piece of joy in their pocket, taking it away from them isn't going to help. It's going to increase the harms in the community, because now that person is going and robbing your garage. He's stealing your bike, to go and get some more. So, but taking away the officer's right to choose could also be harmful. Like, okay, let's leave this in place so that if that person is in a bad place mentally, if that person is getting ready to jump off a bridge and all we can get them for is that little bit of dope in their pocket, that might save their life. We can arrest them and we can, then try to open the door to services for that person.
Yeah.
So removing that off of the table, out of the officer's toolkit, so to speak, I mean, the way you want to look at it, I mean, there might be more harm coming from that than good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing is that when most of these people are talking about this, they really don't understand the addict's mind. They don't understand how we think about this. And what I mean by that is this. Look, there's not a drug out there I haven't done except for methamphetamine. I did my coke. I thought I was Pablo Escobar back in the 80s.
Oh, you gotta try it. You gotta try that shit. You are missing out, my friend.
I'm missing out. But again, any opioid, including methadone, that it took me 2 years to get off of that. I mean, and I had to do it by myself because these methadone clinics, they're not treatment centers, they're maintenance centers, and I wish they would just say that, because they're in essence, in my opinion, lying to the public, saying we're a treatment facility. Well, no, you're not. Okay, you're just kind of keeping everybody on this thing and not really pushing them towards abstinence. But, and here's my point: as an opioid addict on methadone, and if I had and if I was in this world today where harm reduction was this big thing, look, man, I'm not only going to use the methadone, I'm going to use all the opiates that they're selling outside of the methadone clinic. I'm going to use my Vicodin. I'm going to use my Norco. I'm going to use whatever it is, fentanyl, heroin, whatever, because now they're going to drug test me, and what's going to pop? I mean, that's just one side of it. But until people start to understand these minds, and we're almost opening up the door for us to continue with our use. I mean, I know everybody doesn't agree with me on that, but I'm here to tell you, like you, Danny, I mean, we know the opioid addict's mind. We know how we think. And if we're given an inch, we're going to take that mile while we're still using something. And how so how does this even, I don't even see how this is going to work, to be honest with you. I really don't. If somebody can tell me, I'm all ears.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised, top-quality care with programs for detox, inpatient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living, support groups, and more. With 50-plus years of combined experience and sobriety, Flindt, Andersen, and Thelma Gatlin Wilson provide adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect, and a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery. To proudly create and sustain a life without addiction, call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
I think when it comes to reducing harms, we have to look past the substance use. We have to, and you're right. And if the person doesn't have the desire to live a safer way, it's very challenging to convince them to do so.
Yeah.
You can house them, you can feed them, but until they realize that for themselves at a very intimate and deep level that maybe there is a better way, it's very challenging to convince them otherwise. Yeah, so, but if we're gonna take things away, and if you want to look at it, the challenge is that what if these people aren't ready to change? What if the person that our loved one or our client or whatever, they're simply just not ready to change? Right. Does that mean that at that point they deserve to just go in a back alley and get some trash off the street and put it in their arm and hope for the best every day? Is that the solution?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. To me, if you're going to take something away, you have to give something back. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're going to take away the substances, you have to give something back that is going to bring fulfillment into this person's life.
Yeah. So
what would that look like? Maybe you can tell me, what's your vision of that?
I think it's kind of, Flindt, you came aware of this the other day. Dania, have you heard about Rat Park before, the study? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Rat Park, essentially, it started out, there's scientists, two rats, one rat in one cage had just water. The other one had cocaine in it. The one that had cocaine went back more and more and more, eventually overdosed. They repeat it. There you go. Substance abuse and overdose. It's just an issue. Not looking at, these animals are isolated. So they built a rat park, a bunch of rats. They then put water in one, the cocaine water in another, but the rats had everything they wanted: wheels to play on, sex with other rats, cheese, the whole thing. And eventually they all stopped going. They all stopped going to the cocaine water because they found something to be a part of. They found things to do. So I agree with you. If we're going to take it away, we better make sure they get in. Like you and I've talked, hey, eventually we had to leave the confines of the 12-step room and get back to the world and thrive in it and find our place. So again, that's where I go back to the mental health thing. Okay, you're saying it's not a criminal thing. Then where are we going to do that? Well, I agree with you. Where are we going to replace? How are we going to get them out there in the world? Help them build skill sets, self-esteem, challenge them, understand all this stuff is here. Where is that?
And this is my take on it. And this is how I see it. This is how I see the reality of this. And by the way, both you gentlemen are right. Until we change the treatment industry from politics to insurance to doctors, all the way down to the treatment facilities, until we change that. And by the way, that includes mental health in all of this. We're screwed.
And aftercare.
You know what? I'm so glad you brought that up. People don't get how important the aftercare piece of this is. And I'm talking at minimum a year of serious aftercare. Detox is one thing, residential is another, and aftercare is the third piece to that part that has. And I never really says it has to be done. If you don't do that, your chances of remaining clean and sober drop drastically.
In fact, there is a study that was done here in Canada that says your risk of overdose goes up if you go to treatment.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you spend 30 days, or I'm not sure what your programs look like down there, but about typically 30, up here it's 28 days, 30 days. I mean, you are in there long enough to stop shucking and jiving and all of that. And you get some tools in there, right. You get some tools. When I went to treatment, I went through the first 3 steps and I did my guilt and resentments and stuff like that. And I burned the paper and how all the things go. And it was great. It was great. But luckily for me, I was in a situation where I was able to utilize some services in aftercare. I stayed in a sober living house for a year. In fact, I got my son back in that year. And he lived with me in the sober living house. Very great program here in Saskatoon that nobody knows about. It was a whole apartment building specifically for men getting into recovery to get their kids back from the ministry. What a specific thing.
Nice.
I agree, but the building was empty for the first 6 months I was there. I was the only man in that whole building, and it was staffed with social workers and cameras, and we were doing case planning and drug tests and mandatory meetings and supervised access. And, why is that a secret?
Right.
Why is that a secret? Right. So when we get out of treatment and basically it's like, okay, there you go. We dried you out. Have a nice day. Mm-hmm. We didn't really have any time there to get our feet under us, to learn how to be a productive member of this society. We've just been tossed back to the wolves.
Right. There's a couple of things on that, if you don't mind, but and one of them is this. I don't know what it's like up in your neck of the woods, but here, insurance companies are literally now trying to cut the number of days that they're paying in particular, well, for both detox and residential. So we're lucky to get combined 17 days out of 95% of the insurance companies, and we take all different insurances. Mm-hmm. The other piece to that is for those that are on Medi-Cal, government assisted insurances, most people, at least that we deal with, are not going to send their kids to those treatment centers because, and it's just the way it is down here, most of the time they become better criminals and drug addicts when they come out of that place. This is such, and my treatment center, we would not have a problem taking Medi-Cal, taking a government assisted insurance, if they would pay us decent, because the reality is the treatment center has to remain profitable. I'm not saying over the top to where we're driving, Jaguars all over the place. That's not the point, but we have to be able to keep our doors open. In California, my God, taxes alone kill us. So we have to be able to pay our bills, pay our staff. People don't understand, doctors, therapists, nurses, food, all those things. It's a tremendous cost. Payroll tax alone, would shock you. So those things need to be changed as well before we can even begin to fix this problem that we have. We've got nowhere to send these people. That's the sad part.
And that just goes back to, you can't take something away without giving something back. And we got to eat. We got to eat. It would be wonderful if we lived in a resource-based economy where everybody just had what they needed and nobody needed money. That would be wonderful. We could all drive Jaguars and be amazing. Right. So Jaguar's an old man car, by the way.
It really is.
Wow, I'm dating myself here.
Yeah, Jaguar. Did he say that?
It depends on the model.
Depends on the model, man. I'll tell
you. Okay. And your perception of old.
Also true, right? Yeah, it's a scary situation.
It seems to be that we've been put in this folder of hopelessness, because of the way the systems have been designed. It's almost as though the people who it's serving aren't even at the table with the decision makers, and up here, our systems are designed so that we have to accommodate the system. We have to call the detox every day. We have to jump through all the hoops. We have to navigate you check all the right boxes and fit inside them. And if we don't, the big machine doesn't know what to do with us.
Right.
Like, we are unwell. We are not well. When we're seeking services to get past these mental health challenges, such as addiction, we're not well. We're having this expectation put on us that we have to act well before we can get help to get well. Like calling a detox every day, that's like going into the hospital with a broken leg and they're saying, okay, you run around the block 2 times on that leg and then walk through these front doors and ask us for help in a civilized manner, and then we'll put you on a waiting list to get a cast.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right in that. The one good thing about private treatment centers, though, is it really doesn't work that way, at least here. But it certainly does with the government and the county run programs. That you are 100% correct on that. But not with our private treatment centers here.
No, and it's similar up here because the private centers have availability for the most part because, frankly, not a lot of people can afford their services. And that's not a dig at them. We just spoke about, like, we got to eat. Running those big treatment centers with all of those professional service providers on staff, that ain't free.
Right.
Right. So why is it that our government chooses to spend all of this money on our criminal justice system? Justice, I prefer to call it a legal system because there's not a lot of justice happening. But why do they choose to spend on incarceration, on coercion, on all of these hard and absolute forms of behavioral modification when they could switch it over to a healthcare challenge and put this funding into quality service providers that actually care, that actually have the flexibility to do these things in a reasonable time frame? Our systems are set up so rigidly that nobody is motivated to be a risk taker. Nobody is motivated to move the system forward because it's so big and so complex and so heavy that it's near impossible to change.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or check us out online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media at Pain Nonprofit. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. To donate, please click the link in the description and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
One of the things that we're trying to do here in our little neck of the woods is we're trying to get, and we're actually succeeding to some degree in getting the county organizations to partner with the for-profit side of this, because we all know that for-profit businesses,
they're more nimble. They can move faster. They can dip and weave and meet people's needs.
That's exactly right. And so we are taking some small strides with that. For example, the organization here, Parents and Addicts in Needs, we are on the Fresno County Behavioral Health website. Just those little small steps to where they can refer to us so we can help people. That also is, I think, an important key factor in all of this. If more counties were to do that, we would at least be able to help a few more people.
I think it's people playing better together in this. Like, is your goal really just to help that one person? Then why don't we all want to work together for the betterment of that one person?
Yeah.
But it's not, especially when it gets into government money, because, hey, politician, well, yeah, I want this to go through. How good is it going to look for my numbers when re-election comes up? It's like, are you here to really do good and to serve the people, or are you just here to continue to do this because you're a career politician?
Right.
Which, but be honest, Yeah.
Well, and having said that, I mean, that opens the door to another conversation is where is our advocacy pointed? Sure. Where, there's oh, and I forgot the name of it again. The Orison window, so in politics, there's this concept where there's a window that this is where the voters are, and the window moves like you've seen in the past few years how it's moving away from, it's moving towards harm reduction and into better services and things like that. So we're taking all of our research to the government. We're taking all our statistics to the government. We're taking all our lived experience to the government, but the government serves the voting public.
Yes.
That's where their concern is. So why are we beating down the government's door? Why aren't we having more conversations? Not unlike what we're having right now, where we're bringing this information to the voting public, because with better information, people tend to make better decisions, and that would reflect in their votes.
Yes.
So that's why I do what I do. I make it as big and as shiny and as loud. And, my whole goal in life is to stop the scroll.
Right.
To stop the scroll of someone who thinks differently than me. If someone's scrolling on Facebook and they see someone being all shiny and loud, like, what's up, motherfuckers? Like maybe they'll stop long enough to hear a couple of words,
right.
And maybe that'll make them want to hear a few more.
And it's hard. Yeah. I mean, Flindt knows. I mean, you been here for well over a decade and heading towards 2. And it's like, how much louder do we have to get, people? I mean, as you'll say, we're way past the awareness.
We're past. In my opinion, we're past the awareness stage. Everybody knows about fentanyl. Everybody knows about the opioid crisis. Kids know what an M30 pill is. But our government is spending all this money on another awareness campaign, right? Which includes billboards that says fentanyl kills, 1 pill kills. Hell, these kids are using fentanyl underneath the sign and flipping off the sign as they're shooting up fentanyl.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think, like, when I say we need to talk to the public, I think our awareness is that yes, fentanyl kills. Everyone knows that. Everyone is aware of that, but not everyone is aware of the solutions and that it's actually possible.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That is where our awareness should be at. That is where we will foster change, when we can show people, like, look, this is what we've learned. This is working. Look, and as we move forward in this challenge, we will start to accumulate statistics. We will start to accumulate allies. And the more that we can talk about, like, these are real people and we're finding solutions, and now they're becoming productive members of our society, and we can prove it. Look, here's Bob. In fact, I've just been hired or contracted by the University of Saskatchewan to build an awareness piece of content that shows people who have had experienced overdose, who have experienced Narcan, can in fact be productive members of society. Yes. And that video content is going to be used in education in the University of Saskatchewan. Nice. So we're getting there, man. We need to make sure that we shift our awareness. Is like you just said, everyone knows that fentanyl is killing people and that the illicit supply is killing people. Now we just need to bring awareness to the solutions.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's like what we posted about Julian, and we can use it. We can use this young man's name. I mean, this kid wanted to be the Pablo Escobar of the fentanyl drug trade. And he wasn't even 20 yet, and he came through my treatment center. And I mean, now it's been over a year. This kid is doing amazing. And you can tell that he wants it. He's doing everything he possibly can, working on his recovery. And this is a kid, I'm telling you, that, I mean, he was eyeball deep in this. He looks fantastic. He's doing great. He's not all shiny. He's doing this at a nice even pace. And so it does work. It does work. And more people have to see that it does work.
Yeah. And he was presented, to go back to what you were saying, Daniel, as far as taking something away, something else coming in. Yeah. He's seen that value of connectivity, community, servitude, and so on and so on. And just how life is different. It's like, whoa, I don't have crazy chaos going on. Nobody had to Narcan me for what would have been the fourth time he need, the guy,
weird.
yeah, right. Yeah. Huh. I kind of missed that. No, you won't. Trust me. So it's interesting. Like, how do we get that, especially across to the youth? It's like, what's the alternative here? Like,
and I think that's the $1 million ticket right there. That is the $1 million question. How do we coerce or convince or otherwise move people towards a safer way to think, a safer way to live? Some people simply aren't ready to stop using. And this, I think, in my mind, this is the biggest challenge, because I remember what it was like when I was using fentanyl and meth and whatever else. I remember thinking like, I got to quit this, but not today. And then I'd do a big rip and then, go on my way. I don't know that there's anything anyone could have said, so like, I would love to hear what you guys think. Like, how can we shift that thinking from like, it's hopeless, I might as well just die high, to like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I should try abstinence, when that pathway to abstinence is going to involve a lot of pain.
Yeah. Well, then let me interrupt. Sorry, Flindt. No. Share what your path was. I'm interested what your path was, where you found it. I mean, I know some of your story, but what was it for you?
Well, where do you want me to start?
Let's
let's
go
for when I was 3.
No, I mean, I'm really at that point. I mean, I know this about you, it's, like you said, ripping another line, and here it is. And where was it for you that it was, you stopped saying, I will tomorrow, and it became today?
Okay. So I guess I like to tell the story of how, so my mother's been in the addictions field here in Saskatchewan for near 40 years. She's very well known and respected drug and alcohol counselor, substance use professional. One day she took me out for coffee, and this was after a whole bunch of really bad stuff happened. Like my partner and I split, my son was apprehended. My house was in the final stages of foreclosure. And I was using meth every day, all day, every day. It was just, that was my life. I was digging in dumpsters. It was dark. And she takes me out for lunch one day, and I can't imagine how I must have smelled. I can't believe looking back. But we're having lunch, and she starts scheming. She starts planning. She's like, Dan, you need to go back up north, because I'm a welder, right? I worked in northern Alberta and northern Saskatchewan. You need to go back up north and weld and make some money and find some stability and get a safe home, and then get your son back, and making all these plans. And I stopped her, and I'm thinking, even in that moment, I was like, that's not going to work if I'm still high. And I looked at her and I said, well, don't I need to stop? Like, don't I need to get sober first? And she pulled a form out of her purse, and she's like, yes. And she slammed the form down on the table. Goddamn form was all filled out, everything. She's like, sign right there. And off I go to a private detox, right? Because I had that luxury in my life. I was in the position of privilege where my family was able to support me in that, and off I went. Just like that. Well, it was like 10 days later, because even in the private facilities, there's a little bit of a wait.
Sure.
But and then I don't know, like, I remember the last day that I used. My mom rolled up in front of the house, and she's like, are you ready? And I'm like, well, I hope so. And I had one more slug on my California cooler, and off we went. And the desire to use just left me. Like it got so dark for me. And I was able to find that rock bottom, and I was able to find that few seconds of clarity. Now, how do we put that into programming? How do you check the right boxes to put someone in a state of clarity? Is it possible for someone to find that way of thinking without having to go through a whole bunch of dark shit? Because I know I saw a whole bunch of bad shit, and I got told a million times drugs are bad, and I saw the outcomes, and still down the road I went. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm in my soul, like, I wish I had a solution to tell the world A, B, and C happened, and then I wanted to stop, and I can replicate A, B, and C before you burn your life down. you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but after that, that's when I went into detox and I went into treatment for 28 days. And then I went into the sober living facility, like I've already talked about, and I got my son back. And at some point, and it wasn't right away, but at some point, I found fulfillment in other things. I picked up a guitar. I learned how to play it. I think music saved my life, man. Like I started writing my own songs, and like, I'm not trying to be boastful or anything, but I'm not, I wrote some fire songs, man. Like, so, and that really helped me a lot, and I faced big challenges. The hardest challenge I faced in my life was family court. I didn't want to kill myself until I was 9 months clean. I never had a suicidal thought in my life until I was 9 months sober. The problems didn't end when I put the dope down.
Correct.
Right? So I don't think I have a clear answer as to what exactly did it for me, other than your typical and generic saying, like, I found my bottom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it goes back to a saying that I like, a sick man has one problem, a well man has 1,000. And it's just, you and I've kind of.
That's a good meme, my friend. That's a good meme.
All right, I'll produce that today. You share ours instead of us sharing yours all the time. I'm just kidding. But it's how do we move to, like, I know it's going to be hard. You're going to have to uncover these things, but you're going to learn that you can actually handle it and navigate it. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that at all. Especially with boundaries. It's like, oh, it's just easier for me to take people's shit and be a pushover. Then it's like, no, that led to a relapse. Yeah, that ain't gonna work. Sorry, you're gonna have to keep going here, pal.
So, Flindt, with all of your experience in running a treatment center for however long you've been at it, what would you say to this?
Look, I was a lot like you, where my last days were, again, as dark as dark can get for me. And I actually had a friend that, my best friend, that said, I don't want you anymore. Your wife doesn't want you anymore. You got one last shot at this, and I'm getting you in somewhere. And there was this inside of my own head, this silent thank you. Because I knew I wanted it. I didn't know how to ask for it, because the guilt, the shame of all I had done and the people that I had hurt, the financial ruin that I caused, my physical body was literally wasting away. I almost felt unworthy of going into a treatment facility. But Dan, you pose the most important question of all time, is how do we get somebody to acknowledge that? And it's extremely difficult now.
And it's a moving target.
It is a moving target. You bet it is. Yeah. So the best answer I can give, and again, I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but I've been pretty successful at this. When I sit down with somebody, when it comes right down to the end of it, I simply ask them, I said, do you want to die? And sometimes the answer is yes. And then I will come back and say, okay. I said, I want you to remember one thing. Getting clean is not all about us. Getting clean is also about the people that love us and the people that we love. And when we can get clean for somebody else, it has a tendency to heal our hearts even faster. And for some reason, that statement has an effect. Now, not on everybody, but it does have an effect on most of the people that I talk to. Now, when you're sitting in that position, because I've been there, Dan, you've been there, we are at the lowest point we've ever been at. And we're sitting there going, yes, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And we get there and we get, like you said, we get through the detox, we get through the residential. Sometimes we're offered the outpatient, sometimes we're not. I think there always reaches a point in most of us that this is kind of hard to say, that we almost kind of give a fuck you to what has just happened to us, and we go out one more time. And with that, then a lot of us don't come back from that. So what I'm trying to say here is, how do we get to that person at that stage when they're about ready to leave treatment almost? And what do we tell them in that time frame?
We tell them, here's an aftercare program. I'll give you a ride.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
They're not ready to go. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a whatever. I'm in no, it's not saying this in any kind of professional capacity, but we're not ready to go back into the world after 30 days of.
Correct.
So, but I've been sort of reflecting as I'm listening to you talk, and like when you were talking about things that brought you into recovery, I didn't hear anything about not being able to find drugs. I went into treatment because I couldn't find drugs. So to me, I think that's where Safe Supply can come in to the spectrum of care. Somebody wants to go to treatment, but they're not quite there yet. Should they not be able to go to their doctor and be like, hey, like I'm not loving this life anymore. But I'm ready to take steps in the right direction. And then the doctor can say, okay, well, here, we'll try this for a while and come back and see me once a month or whatever. And we'll talk about it some more, and then you start to build rapport with this person. They start to trust the things that you are saying and that you genuinely want to help them. And when they're ready to say like, look, I'm at a barrier in my life. I can't move forward with these substances. Then you can take the next step, whatever that looks like.
Sure. And I think there is a lot of validity to that, but I'm going to tell you a little story here, because there's not much in this, Dan, that I didn't do. And one of them was just that. I went to this one doctor with my friend who got me into treatment, but this was a few years prior to me getting into that last treatment center. I was tired. I was done with it. I don't even think I've told you this story. And we went to a doctor who was actually a friend of ours. And I said, I can't, Dr. Ron, I can't do this anymore. I said, what do you suggest? He said, all right. He said, let's try to taper you down here. I said, I'm good with that. So I was taking, again, between 70 and 80 pills at that point. So what we would do is, and by the way, my friend got them. I had to go to his house every single day to pick up my dose for the day. So the first day would have been 69 and a half, right? Then down to 69, and then down to 59 and a half pills, and all the way down. And there was about a year of that, whatever the time frame was, I can't remember. But I did it. Okay. I did it. I got all the way down to that half. And within 2 weeks, I was back at it full bore again.
So what were you doing to supplement that? Like as
Nothing.
You were taking, exactly. So as you were taking the drugs away, what were you replacing it with in your life?
Zero. And that's the key here. Okay. I'm not going to say I wasn't replacing it with nothing, because I was going to a few I wasn't serious about it, but I was going to a few meetings, right? I mean, I was going to church, I was doing those kinds of things. But nowhere in that time frame did I get into up here, this thing that's 3 feet above my ass, and and try to figure out what's going on between my ears.
Mhm. Well, and I mean, even having something fulfilling to do, the
Correct.
old boys in the basements, they tend to say, you need a lunch bucket and a big book, right? So, so, get a lunch bucket, get a job, find something productive to do, and start to build something. And the thing is that we're not being given those opportunities that we need to succeed, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe that is a valid story, because I did that myself a lot of times, not as successfully as you and not with the help of a doctor, but I'd be like, okay, well, I'll wean myself down and, here, off I go. This time will be different. And then, so yeah, I get it. But, even in my own shortcomings, I can recognize that for all of those times that I tried to quit, I wasn't trying to replace what was being taken from me with anything productive at all.
Right. Well, and I think that's another thing that helps with again, like, great, decrim. Now, what does that mean? Well, a benefit of that is, guess what? This person no longer has a record, and they might be more prone to getting hired for a job that might lead to something else. And it's focused on and treated as a mental health disorder, which it is. It should be. So hopefully we get some movement in that direction. But again, government likes to move a lot slower than us individuals.
And I'm not even so sure in any case with 100% certainty that it's that they like to move so slow. It's that the system has been designed in such a way that there is no other opportunity to move any faster.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I love community-based organizations. They come up nonprofit, they take donations, they do work in the community, and they're nimble as fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They've got a few people that they need to answer to on their board. And if they're all like-minded, like, they can really start forging new trails. And that's why, and like 90% of the organizations that support my platform, that bring stability to my platform so that I can focus on this full time, are nonprofit organizations. And people are like, those are charities. Why are they, that's weird. Usually you make donations to charities. You don't get money from charities. And I'm like, well, what I'm doing aligns very strongly with their mission, and nobody's doing it. Nobody is taking their whole desk and making it about bringing awareness on social media. Nobody's doing that because nobody has time to do that. And all of these organizations, probably not unlike your treatment center, are treating patients.
Right.
They're doing the good work. So I've come to a place where we're okay, I'll be the town crier. And they're like, all right, Dan, we'll get behind you. And here we are.
Well, Dan, it's interesting. When I started this back in 2009, you can't believe the amount of people that said, Flindt, what are you doing? This isn't gonna work. Nobody wants to hear about addiction. Nobody. Yeah. God, you're
Jaguar
just
driving guy,
Jaguar
off
driving motherfucker. Okay, and I said, you know what? I said, I don't care. Okay. I said, I don't care what other people think at this point. I go, this is where I've been led. This is what I'm going to do. And I'll tell you and Dan, I will say this, those first 4 or 5 years were a pain in the ass. And if I ever had to start a nonprofit over again, I wouldn't do it because it was that difficult. But you're right. You get the right people on the board, you get those people supporting you, like minds. And my God, now we're going into our 15th year, I think it is. And we are that town crier here. We are the ones that have been making the noise the longest in this area. And like I tell everybody, they're going to have to bury my ass under the orange tree. Okay. Before I'll keep my mouth shut. And again, like with you guys, the young guys, God, I respect you guys so much because you're the ones that are going to have to keep this thing going. We cannot, excuse me. We cannot see this thing die just because some of us that are older in this thing are going to die, at some point. This is going to be in your lap. In my lifetime, I guarantee you, I will not see the change in government. I will not see the change in insurance companies. I just won't see it. You guys have the possibility of seeing that in your lifetime. And how cool would it be for guys like you to be out there and making that change? Man, I mean, I'll be looking down going, yeah, buddy. Okay. Because somebody's got to take this thing over and do it. And that's why I respect the hell out of you guys.
Awesome.
Gosh, what just a hammer and the nail or whatever, the nail. Look, we got a hammer, we got a nail.
We got it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you wrap up and give us a little more on Hard Knox Talks, really how it came together? Like you were saying, you showed us your studio, and you're a fabricator by trade. All this shit was foreign to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did use my fabricating skills to build a mount to mount my microphone boom to. So there's a little bit of trade work happening. In fact, I built this desk. And the funny thing is that the desk that all of this is set up on, I built when I was high.
I played some of my best golf when I was high. I mean, there you go.
Are you sure? Or did you just think that at the time?
Right? Well, I can't remember what I put on the scorecard. So,
like I said earlier, I started this in the pandemic with a laptop, and slowly school became my side hustle. I forget how much of this I already talked about, so you may have to do some editing. I don't know, but I just started going on and interviewing people in an organic sort of from the heart kind of way, I would be prepared. I would pre-interview them and I would be like, okay, we're going to talk about this and this and this, but then not unlike our conversation today, we would just sort of wing it. And the community really started responding to that. And I'm talking the local community here in Saskatoon. They started noticing and people started talking, and slowly my following grew. I hit about 5,000 followers, and I started getting sponsors, and I started qualifying for grants. I had a woman by the name of Barb Fornsler. She's a faculty member here in the School of Public Health. She was an integral part early on of getting some grants awarded. Right. Nice. She's a beautiful grant application writer. Her grants should be hanging on the wall in the museum here in town with lights on them and the bench. Just sit there and look at them. They're beautiful. So, and then, like I said, I dropped out of school in 2022 early on, just over a year now. And when I did that and was able to completely focus all of my energy and all of my, everything that I needed to do into what was truly bringing fulfillment into my life, it kind of blew up. It kind of blew up.
Cool.
And to this day, it's bringing enough stability into my life that I can provide for my family of 4, and we've got a big dog and 2 cats, and we live in a rental property, and it's too small, and we need a bigger one, and the car's rusty, but there's gas in the tank. And right. There's food in the fridge, and the fridge makes a funny sound once in a while, and that's just real life. And I'm good with it, man. Do I want more in my life? Yeah, I would like to own a home. Yeah, I would like to have enough bedrooms for everyone. There's a bunk bed in the kids' room and the 2 kids are in there, but we're living in recovery. We're a family coming back from the ashes, man. And I think that in the it's just such a genuine thing. I genuinely want to help. I believe stories have the power to save lives, and I treat them as such. We're administering medication here, you guys. Right. The elders, the ancients, everybody knows the power of story, and the only people not getting behind me is the government.
That's it. That's right. That's right.
They don't like that narrative, buddy.
Yeah.
You mean you can do this without us? Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yes, we can. Yeah, thanks to community-facing organizations.
That's right.
If people want to find out, go ahead.
And I want to throw in there my flagship sponsor, the person the organization that has gotten behind me from the very beginning, my very first sponsor that afforded me a lot of this equipment, is a private treatment center.
Beautiful,
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
People want to find more about Hard Knox Talks. Where can they get you?
www.hardknoxtalks.com. From there, you can find us on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Please watch us on YouTube. If you're going to tune in, watch us on YouTube, because we want to not be on Facebook very much. And but we love our Facebook community. If you're watching on Facebook, don't be like that. I didn't mean to smite you. We're also on TikTok. We're on LinkedIn. We're really all over the place. All our audios are available on all audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're extremely easy to find. So please check us out. We would appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. And I definitely highly recommend, if you can't catch the live stream that you provide on so many different platforms, definitely watch YouTube. Daniel, you do an amazing job of pulling in photos from people's lives, building that into the conversation and everything else. And it's just, man, that's one of the great things about this recovery community and the internet, is I get to meet so many amazing people such as yourself to become friends. But at the same time, it still sucks that you're in Saskatoon and we're in Central California. That it can't be like coffee today,
right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, when we all hit it rich and drive Jaguars, maybe I'll jump on a plane and come down there.
he is not going to let that Jaguar thing go, is he?
No,
You are not,
I'm not sure it's ever going to stop being funny.
You're the best.
Flindt.
Thanks, Dan. You're the best, man. Seriously, I've been following you now for a while. I love the memes. I mean, some of those have meant more to me, and I'm not joking when I say that. They are powerful. I repost those things because they've got so much meaning to them, and God, most of it's my life. I mean, I can't believe it. Love what you're doing. Keep it up, man. Like I said, you guys are the ones that are going to take this thing to the next level and beyond. And I just can't wait to see, as I'm sitting in my old chair at home, okay, what you guys are going to start to accomplish here and get done. So thank you for everything, man. We'll definitely speak again.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Thanks for seeing value in what I do, and thanks for inviting me to share my experiences with you today. I appreciate that very much.
You got it.
I think it goes beyond value. I believe in you, my friend.
It does.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or check us out online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media at Pain Nonprofit. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. To donate, please click the link in the description and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
This podcast contains the views and opinions of hosts and their guests to the show. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only. And because each person is sharing their unique perspective, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. Privacy is of the utmost importance to us. For those wishing anonymity, people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect confidentiality at the request of certain guests. This website or podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis for expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship. If you find any errors in any of the content of this podcast or blogs, please send a message through the contact page.